This is my illness, this is what I have, this is my life. There was many times where I wanted to kill myself because it was too hard to live like it. I never actively did, I just wished. I wished I didn't wake up in the morning. Every single birthday when I blew up my candles was I never wished for a pony, or I wished to never be sick again. Hi everyone, I'm Emma from Tenerife Animal Sanctuary, and this is a very different video. If you're watching it, it means you've seen us probably on Ben Fogle New Lives, and that means you're probably interested in my mental health story, something I've never really spoken about on our channel before, but it was overwhelming the amount of interest we had on it, and it seems like such an important topic to talk about, so that's what I'm going to do.
So what was that fear?
So the fear I had is called emetophobia, and it's a fear of vomiting. I could be wrong, but I think, or at the time when I suffered, it was the second or third most common fear, but no one really spoke about it because it was really unusual or embarrassing, and yeah, embarrassing is the main thing, taboo, no one speaks about it. But yeah, fear of vomiting, basically a fear of something your body does itself.
And when did you first realize that your fear of vomiting was more than just normal discomfort?
I had this fear all my life, as much as I can remember, really. Back to where I was in primary school. I know exactly, well, from therapy and looking back into it, I know almost exactly when it started and how it started. But yeah, it was all my childhood, all my teenage years and my early adult life.
And how would you explain emetophobia to people who don't know this or hear it for the first time?
Well, simply put, emetophobia is a fear of vomiting. There's actually two types. You can either be a fear of you vomiting or fear of seeing someone else vomit. I had a fear of me vomiting, which sounds, maybe not that big a deal. It actually really is. And for any of those people that suffer from it, it actually affects every aspect of your life. Meaning what you're eating, where you're going, what you're touching, who your friends are, how you socialise. It affects whether you can keep a job, whether you can keep in school. It affects sometimes even fear of breathing in places, touching public toilets. I mean, I can get really in depth of how it affects everything, but yeah, it is an extreme, irrational fear of vomiting.
So how can I imagine like your daily life? You were like a lot at home and not going outside? Or?
I went through phases of like how severe it was at a time, I suppose. It was always there on a baseline, but you create like, what's it called, like coping mechanisms and safety techniques and things to hide it, because you don't want, this is how it was for me, and I know it is for many other people. You don't want people to know that you have it because it's really embarrassing. So you create things to hide it, and you try to pretend that you don't have it and that you're fine and that you can fit into normal life, but you're basically safety checking everything. So for example, like, I never managed really to keep a job very well, because if I ever heard that one of the other staff was ill, I left, or I was too scared of working closely with people. So I created my own jobs, and I pretended that I was just really entrepreneur. It actually paved my life into being an entrepreneur and creating my own life, so it was a blessing in disguise now. But at the time I made my own work because I was too scared to be around other people. And so I ended up working jobs that were safer. There was no children around. I was very scared of being near children. I was very scared of the winter season. That was working, I suppose. This is such a long story. How to squeeze it into short answers is going to be hard, but if people are interested, I can expand more in detail. But also it was day to day, there was a lot of hand washing. There was a lot of watching everybody's body language, checking for their colour of their skin to, do they look ill, listening to how they speak. And if someone says they feel ill, I had a way to make it look like I was really caring and was, oh, I'm so sorry to hear you're ill. How are you feeling? Oh, have you got that cold that's going around? It made me sound really caring, when actually I was just safety checking, because inside I was panicking, like, oh God, maybe they were sick and maybe it's going to be something I can catch. So it affected every aspect. Cooking as well, and eating, safety foods. Everywhere you went, you had to be really needed to know where the bathroom was, just in case the worst imaginable thing happened. I needed to know, because the worst thing in the world would have been vomiting in public. For the record, I actually never vomited, ever. Basically never. The only time, this is another story, this is interesting on its own. I think I went 17 years without vomiting, something like that. Because I had so many, I think my body was so scared of it, and I bubbled myself away. And I wasted 20 odd years of my life being scared of something that didn't even really happen.
And what did the typical trigger felt like in your body, for example, when you had like a plate of food and you weren't sure about it?
Food-wise wasn't too bad triggering, because I just became obsessive about what to eat, and I would just not eat things. But for example, if I ate something, or I ate something and then halfway through it didn't feel like it was cooked enough, then the panic come over me. Or if I was with someone and then they said, oh, you know, I was sick yesterday, or something like this, or these triggers, it would be a full-blown panic attack usually. And the sweat coming up on the dripping down your back, the hairs on the back of your neck, shaking, spinning, passing out. There was different levels. Sometimes if I was really in a public place with friends I was trying to keep, I could like contain it slightly. I'd suddenly make an excuse that something happened, I'd run home, and that's when I'd break down and panic. And there was different levels of how much and the triggers happened.
And the people who knew about it, how did they react?
It's really hard for people. Now I see that, now being totally over it, I see how, and I'm fully understanding it, I see how hard it must have been for my family. My friends, not really, because they didn't really know, and we were young, and if you don't know these things, you don't understand, they're just like, oh, Emma's a bit weird, like, oh, she's just being weird again. I don't know how hard it was for them. I hid it a lot, but my family, it was really hard, because they didn't really understand. It was just their little girl suffering over something which seems so stupid, and you don't know how to handle. You don't know. I think no one knows whether I should be in. Also, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, mental health wasn't as open as it was now, and people didn't understand it more. So it was, doctors would say, oh, she's bulimic or anorexic, or tell her off, it's just, you know, behavior. And parents trusted what doctors said. Oh, give her some medication for depression, or yeah, she's bulimic. I mean, did they even listen to my problems if they were thinking I was bulimic? It was the total opposite. But they used to just, a lot of times it was, she just needs to, you need to be stricter with her because she doesn't, it's just behavior, you know, and no one understood. No one knew how to handle it. It was difficult.
Was there a moment in your life when you thought, I can't live like this anymore, I have to change something, or I would want to try at least something?
Every day was like that. There was many times where I wanted to kill myself because it was too hard to live like it. I never actively did. I just wished. I wished I didn't wake up in the morning, and I wished that everything would change, but I didn't never believe that it was possible that I could change. I tried so many different types of therapy. I tried so many coping mechanisms. Nothing made any difference until later, obviously. But I mean, for the first 20 years, I suppose, am I exaggerating? Is it being 20? No, it was 20 years. Yeah, maybe even slightly more, because it was, yeah, when I was in primary school until I was in my mid-20s. So yeah, I tried so many different things, but I didn't believe, I had no confidence in myself at all that I had any control over changing it. So nothing really did anything at first.
I mean, it's incredible that therapy at first didn't help because the therapist didn't know about this or what was the problem.
Yeah, pretty much. I would say a lot of it is because therapists didn't understand it. It was not talked about. And because it's incredibly difficult to overcome, I suppose. It wasn't like I could just suddenly did it. It took years and years to actually get there. I had to actively choose every day once I was on the path of recovery. I mean, we'll talk about that later, I suppose. But it's not an easy thing. It's not, general therapy did nothing. I felt like I was giving my external locus of control to other therapists, and that actually made it worse in a way, because when I was having a panic attack, instead of knowing how to deal with things, I then needed to speak to my therapist, or I had to put my safety mechanisms, and I had to lock myself away for 48 hours and watch obsessively how my body symptoms for the next 48 hours before I could come out of the safety zone and things like this. It's really hard to treat because no one understood it.
And how did you heal?
So when I was in my mid-20s, I suppose, I mean, I went through phases where, like I said, I could handle it a bit better. I mean, I don't actually know what did that or why I went through better phases. Maybe I was in general things like in happier relationships or fun jobs or something that made me handle things a little bit better. But then I got to a point that I went really down again. And then I cannot tell you the triggering moment why I chose to go on this program. I think I just was down and I was searching for it, and I found a program that was specialised to emetophobia, and it's the first time I'd ever really seen that. And it wasn't therapy in a way, like I said before, that gives your power to someone else. It was about teaching you why your body or your brain is doing what it's doing, why you believe this, and how to actively change it. So I got this book, I started looking into it, and I started that, which gave me a little bit of confidence to do the next step and the next step. But it took years. It wasn't a simple thing that I could do, but every day I had to actively choose, again, to follow strictly these things, what to do, these like training for my brain, so to speak, of why I understood that and why I was feeling this way, and the understanding. That was the main thing. I mean, I can't answer that without getting really in depth of how it works, but it was actually understanding why I believed that and why I felt that, and actually my thoughts were not real. It was just what I was thinking, and how all of my life had made these building blocks, like building a wall, that I had this belief, and then this belief built it and built it and built it until my wall was so strong that I believed that being sick was the worst thing in the world. And it wasn't until I had some evidence to start knocking down at the wall that, oh, okay, that's not necessarily true, that's not necessarily true. And then I got the confidence to take the next step. It was scary, it was difficult, but it was scary and difficult having emetophobia, and I had to choose my difficult and my fear. And thankfully I chose that, and after a few years it got gradually better and better and better until I'm who I am now, and I am the most opposite person you can imagine. Now, this is how I live. I live in dirt, I'm surrounded by animals, and it's totally different.
And also you're a mother now, so
yes.
Did motherhood push you toward healing or make it harder?
No, I was totally healed by motherhood, because I was convinced, that was another thing, I was not even crossed my brain that I was ever going to have a baby. Morning sickness, babies and kids vomit all the time, this fear, didn't ever even consider it. When I was young, all I wanted to do was just cope a bit, to maybe get a relationship, have a job that made me a bit safe. I never had high expectations for myself. I never thought I could do any of these things. I certainly never thought I could have a baby. And I do. And guess what? I wasn't even sick during my pregnancy, would you believe? Not during labour, not during that. But I have had moments where Iggy's had a bug and vomited all over me. And actually, I have to say, your body doesn't catch up, or mine hasn't catch up as quick as my brain. Like, he'd vomit over me, and then I felt that immediate prickle on the back of my neck and the heat rise my body, and then I was like, hold on a minute, I'm not scared of this at all anymore, and it went straight back down. But old habits die hard, and my body was like, oh God, you're meant to be scared of this. And I'm like, no, I'm not, I'm fine. And then I dealt with it, and you know what, I caught it from him. It happened, and yeah, and it's the best thing in the world, having a baby, absolutely. And I can't believe, I was so sure I was never ever going to do it, because it was just too scary.
That's amazing. And also here, the animal sanctuary, did you heal before starting it?
Yes. I'm terrible with numbers. I think it was around 26 that I moved, so about 10 years ago, I suppose. I was actually living on a different island, and I pretty much recovered it before I left the UK, and it gave me enough confidence to move abroad, but I wasn't totally 100%, I think, by then. But next step, because it gave me the confidence to change my life where I wanted it and in the right direction. And then that just, once you like got up, and then you just started spiraling in the right direction. So I just got over it, and it just got better and better and better. But it was all totally gone before I started this. I mean, there was absolutely no way I would have ever dreamed of doing anything like this. My day-to-day life is surrounded by 60 people, and I tell you what, when a stomach virus hits a community of 60 people, that's fun. That is something that I would have certainly never imagined I could survive with, because I spent my 20 odd years of my life hiding from people, and now I live with 60 people. Animals everywhere, dirt everywhere, food from the bin, babies. I'm one extreme to the other. We have limited water here. Sometimes we're using wastewater. Sometimes we can't shower for a week. I've gone full the opposite to being obsessively clean and obsessive about food and being away from people, to living with as many people as possible in a really, really, I don't want to say dirty way, but it's a little bit dirty, let's be honest.
I think it's very inspiring and empowering for all the people with emetophobia and also with other mental health problems to see what you achieved.
I hope so, and that's why I want to share my story. Not because, I mean, I haven't hidden it because I'm embarrassed or anything. I used to be, of course, but now I'm proud of it, because I know how many people suffer, and just from that little clip on TV, I've had so many people message me. And if my story can give anyone some confidence that they can overcome it, because when I was going through it, I never saw anyone that had overcome it. So it never really gave me there was no belief that I could. I was like, that I've got this forever. You can't. That's just is what it is. You know, this is my illness. This is what I have. This is my life. These are the cards I had. And because there was no belief, I didn't think I could ever overcome it. And then with this program, there's a couple of odd stories that people felt a bit better. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I can do this. And I really want to be that voice to tell people that you definitely can. It's not going to be easy, but you have to choose it, but you absolutely can. And I really hope that I can help people. So if that means I can make more videos, I can try to explain more in depth, or I can tell some of the more in detail stories of the things that happened in the past, because there is now, looking back, some, you have to laugh about it now. There are some really sad stories about when I was a child, and every single birthday when I blew up my candles was I never wished for a pony, or, you know, I wished to never be sick again, or how it started when I know exactly this. There's big stories on that I can get into, or you know, problems when I ran away from my holiday because my mum was sick and things like this. I can have some in-depth stuff which people with emetophobia will really relate to, but I don't want to make this too long if people aren't interested. But I hope it can help, and I'm certainly willing to share more of my story if it will help people.